Joining us now is New York Times chief White House correspondent Peter Baker and Brendan Buck, former communications advisor to Speakers Ryan and Boehner. Peter, you're writing that these two Americas are living in two different realities, and that while there have been divisions in the past, these are two Americas separated in their facts, in the way they view themselves, and often in their abortion laws, their gun laws. Talk to us about the potential for that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, every contest for president is a split between liberal, conservative, Republican, Democrat. These are great debates that we've had over the course of our history. But we're in a moment now where the polarization is so deep, so stark, that we do live in these seemingly separate Americas. There are about 44 states where these candidates won't bother to show up for the most part because they're already pretty much assigned to red America or blue America. And you see how, they are so different, not just in their laws, not just in their outlooks, but even in their information space. They live in a different internet and media sphere. They have different ideas about reality. They have different ideas about everything, including like the 2020 election, a pretty good barometer of that. And so you have these two presidents. This is the first time we've had two presidents, a former and a current president, running against each other in more than a century, more than any of our lifetime. But they not only are two presidents who served in the Oval Office at one time or other, but they do seem to lead these two different Americas. And you see even today, Donald Trump, even though he's not an incumbent, acting like an incumbent to some extent in the way he's calling shots on the Hill in terms of negotiations with Biden and the Democrats over the border money and policies. So you do have this remarkable moment, I think, in our history.
Brendan, at the same time, Donald Trump is beating Joe Biden in many of the polls on the economy, certainly on all kinds of other factors. But the U.S. economy now is playing very much in Biden's favor, growing at a more rapid pace in the latest GDP, inflation easing in the closing months of 23. Stock market, Here's President Biden yesterday reacting to the Wall Street Journal's coverage.
U.S. economy grew at a shocking pace. I love that shocking pace, Pete. And by the way, the economic growth is stronger than we had during the Trump administration. My predecessor recently said he was actually hoping for the economy to crash, his quote.
But the fact is, a lot of the voters don't know about that. They understand a different economy. They understand the economy they see in the grocery store, and the difficulty in the housing market, perhaps. And they're not hearing Donald Trump the same way through their media.
Yeah, that's right. Obviously, there are a lot of statistics that work in the president's favor, but the reality is they have for a long time. And as you note, a lot of people that haven't necessarily said that they think the economy is great. They think that their own personal economy is going very well, but there is this perception that is still pretty pervasive that the American economy is weak. And the White House has, I think, a pretty difficult job ahead of itself to turn that around. Now, is there an opportunity for that? Absolutely. We've talked a lot about the White House's decision to brand the economy Bidenomics. I think we should appreciate that, there are smart people at the White House. Ben LaBolt, the White House communications director, is not a dummy. I think he understood that there was a risk associated with that, but they were probably placing a bet that the president was going to rise or fall on the economy, and they might as well own it. And I think that what they're hoping is that over the next 6 to 9 months, you do see a dramatic turnaround, and that perception starts to catch up with what some of those statistics say, and they can take credit for it. I think they realize that if that doesn't happen, they're probably toast either way.
And Peter, just very briefly, the so-called change or shakeup at the campaign, do you think that is going to make a big difference in the messaging?
Well, look, I mean, this is inevitable. It was inevitable. You're going to have these two people, Jenna Dillon and Mike Donilon, go over the campaign. But there has been some discontent about how it's been organized, how it's been messaging. The Biden people say, calm down, it's okay. They've raised a lot of money, and they still have a lot of time in their view to get their message out there. But part of their message is not going to be just on the economy. I think that's the way politics used to work. It's the economy, stupid, was always such a driver of presidential elections. But I think in today's polarized tribal atmosphere, because of the perceptions Brendan is talking about, it's also about, defining the choice. And that's what President Biden's campaign thinks it has to do. It has to make clear to the voters, particularly voters who are disappointed in President Biden, that Donald Trump will be worse. And we'll see if they can pull that off.